So is Jesus a liar, a lunatic, Lord, or is he legend? That's what we're talking about in this video. I want to thank everybody for joining me. This is your Coach Renz. For all my subscribers, I appreciate you guys. And if you're finding me for the very first time, you know we do videos on spirituality, relationship, money, and all other kind of things, and motivation and inspiration. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You'll like the videos you like. You don't like the ones you don't like, chew the meat, spit out the bone. Now, if you've been participating in our giveaways, hey, hit bracelet, type bracelet, hashtag bracelet, and you'll be in the next giveaway, which we'll be announcing that one tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be announcing the winner of the bracelet giveaway. And I want to thank everybody, and please continue to support me on Patreon as well as Uncle Ren's Popcorn. I thank you guys for ordering my gourmet popcorn. It's been great. I appreciate the people who have enjoyed it and loved it. And please comment in the bottom if you've had it, liked it, loved it, that sort of thing as well. Let's move into this video. What inspired this video? The inspiration of this video comes from multiple people commenting on other spiritual videos that I've made. Some people have commented the fact that my timeline is off, and that the fact that there were first century, that the Gospels was written in the first century, and the first century writings is proof of the existence of Jesus. Where there is others who have written that what I'm teaching is not, what is this garbage that I'm teaching, because it's not biblical truth. Well, here's the thing about all of that conversation. In the woods, you hear stuff. Is that we're going to break this down, not individually going after each person who said something and correcting them. I'm going to use this entire argument that most Christian scholars will use. Actually, the guy who wrote the book Narnia, I think his name is Wales or Wallace, is one of the first persons to bring this argument to bear. But let's break down the argument. The argument is lie. Is Jesus a liar, lunatic, or Lord? Now, first of all, we're messing up on the first premise. The first premise is that is all that it could be. And many people in apologetics, they try to limit your options in order to get their point across. So let's look at it from their perspective of liar, lunatic, or Lord. Now, we're not going to argue the historicity of Jesus. I know many of you in the comments are going to say he never existed, and that's fine. That's not my point of argument in this one. In this video, we're talking about this type of argument that is used to describe whether or not it's valid or not. So we look at the first one, liar. Well, many will just dismiss the idea that Jesus is a liar, especially since Jesus didn't write anything and everything else was written by other people. So how could Jesus be a liar if he never wrote any of the writings? He never left his own manuscript. There's no book of Jesus by Jesus. There are just it's written by other people. Supposedly eyewitness accounts, supposedly the stories heard from other people who witnessed it. So that's the premise. So he's not a liar because he never said anything. He never claimed anything himself. It was all reported by other people. So he's not a liar. Lunatic. The lunatic argument can be given to people who say that, okay, well, he was saying that he was the Son of God and that sort of thing, which many people have said that in the past, and many people believe that everyone is the Son of God. Many people believe everyone is the sons and daughters of God, I should say. So he's not necessarily a lunatic because he wasn't going around asking people to drink the Kool-Aid, so to speak, as we know of Jim Jones. So he wouldn't have been classified as a lunatic. People like David Koresh, we will easily classify David Koresh and Jim Jones and bin Laden as lunatics because they're asking people to sacrifice themselves and die, and they have messages that are far out of the norm of the current culture. And that generally is what makes you a lunatic. One of the easiest ways that we can dismiss someone is to call them a lunatic or crazy. And we do that so often. As soon as you say that Jim Jones was crazy, had those people drinking the Kool-Aid. David Koresh, crazy, got those people, in that house and burn them down and saying that everybody's wife is mine. Since I'm Jesus, I'm the return, everybody is mine. So we easily dismiss them as lunatic. Even in today, some of you would call, there's an Orthodox Jewish church up in New York, or organization, and there's the gentleman, I can't say his whole name, but he's called the rabbi, right? The rabbi is considered, some would consider him to have been a lunatic, other than simply because he is not what he taught, that he was the Messiah. He's the Jewish Messiah. He died in 1994. We're going to come back to him a little bit later. But So they dismissed and said, well, he obviously wasn't a lunatic because he sacrificed himself. He was teaching things that was of loving one another and things like that. Although he said, hate your mother and brother and sister, he's not considered a lunatic. And no one would really look at the teachings of Jesus and say that he was a lunatic. So if he's not a liar and he's not a lunatic, then the Christian argument ends with, he must be Lord. He must be Lord. He must be exactly what it is said he was. It must be what he said he is. Therefore, he's Lord. But yet, they forget that they had their own writing. And their own writings, I can show you how it's more likely he's legend. Now, I believe the Christian apologists made one mistake in the medieval times. I don't know exactly the year. But they wanted to discredit. No, it wasn't even medieval time. It was earlier than that. They wanted to discredit. It was when Christianity was first formed. They wanted to discredit the pagan religions. And by discrediting them, what they wanted to do was to make sure that people understood that the pagan religion was based on that they were legend, that they're not real. They're not liars. They're not lunatics. Certainly not Lord, but they were legend. And they wrote the church put out the Pre. Let me look at it because I don't want to say it wrong. The Pre Precatio de Evangelico. Pre Precatio de Evangelico. They put this out. Now, one of the main examples that they used was Hercules. Hercules, as many of you may know, we see Hercules as legend. Well, why do we see Hercules as a legend? We see him as a legend because of this document. This document said that was there a guy who let me go back it up a little bit. We see him as legend because as the legend goes, Hercules was the son of Zeus, the main god, the big guy in the sky. He was the son of Zeus. Zeus came down, had sex with his mother. So Hercules is a demigod. He's half god, half man, because he's born from a woman, but the seed of a god, of the god, right? The main god of the Greeks. So Zeus impregnates a woman. The woman has the baby. The baby, from the time of birth, kills a serpent, right? Grows up, and has 12 feasts, 12 trials, and go through the 12 trials, and then rules over the land. And then upon his death is promised to live in the heavens. And of course, we have a constellation called Hercules, right? And that's the story. Now, they're not saying that Hercules is a liar. They're not saying that he's a lunatic, nor are they saying he's Lord. What the evangelical teaches is that he was a legend. That was there a guy who was the king of Argos? Yes. Did this guy do some pretty good things? Was he a good king? Did people really like him? Yes. But then did those followers of his, those who liked him, kind of go overboard and make him into a demigod, and then the son of God who accomplished 12 feats and then rose into the heavens, and now there's a constellation that we still call Hercules. The Precatio de Evangelico made Hercules legend. Who has a similar story? But before we go to who has a similar story, let's look at some other legends to show you how even in our modern times, we still make people into legend. We still make stories into legend. Many of you may not know who Vlad the Impaler is, but Vlad the Impaler became Dracula. Dracula became the Lord of the Vampires, who still walks the night. He's legend. Born a true man, was cruel to some people. To his enemies was considered cruel, but to his people mean, but not as cruel, because he still defended their territory. But then became Vlad the Impaler, with ultimate cruelty, and then he became Dracula. George Washington, not so much as legend as you would think some of these other people. But let's think about, here's the thing about George Washington that's always stuck out to me. And this is why you have to look at these and say literature does not create proof. Literature is not facts. George Washington is not only legend, but also liar. And not that he's the liar. And this is how I want you to, this is the literary proof of that. The story that most Americans grow up with is that George Washington is in his family's yard. The cherry tree is fallen. His father comes up and says, "Who chopped down this cherry tree?" He says, "I cannot tell a lie. I did it." And it is a testament to the honesty of George Washington from the time that he was a young child, and he was the first president under the Constitution of the United States. And notice I say under the Constitution because we had presidents before that under under a different document. But anyway, he's president. He's a great man, founding father, leader of the nation. Could have become king if he wanted to. But that story is a lie. A reporter wrote that story was told by what we would call a press agent, his press agent today. It was told by one of them. The story was a part of his re-election. It was a part of his election. It was part of his propaganda in order to give a favorable aspect. I don't know why he needed a favorable story, because the Revolutionary War just happened. The dude was going to win. No one is going to beat him, as far as being president. But it was a story told about him that was a lie. Somebody else wrote the story caught on, and that lie became truth, which became legend. All right? But it wasn't even legend for a while. When I was growing up in school, it was just truth. That was just truth. I'm 46, so that tells you how long it's been since this come out. That story was embellishment. That story was untrue. It was a complete lie. Is that the story of George Washington chopping down the cherry tree is a complete lie. It's only been out for maybe 20, 30 years, mainstream. Some people have always known, but mainstream, 20, 30 years has it been out. But prior to that, when I was in elementary school 40 years ago, that was truth. That was truth. That was truth, like the Bible, truth, right? But it was written by someone else. And over the years, as long as you kept telling it, it became truth. It became legend. It became legend. D.B. Cooper hijacked a plane from Portland to Seattle, extorted $200,000, which is equivalent to about $1.2 million today. Sorry for the plane. About $2 million a day. Well, $1.2 million today. Parachuted out of the plane. They never found the body. Have no idea where he is. It wasn't until 2016 that the FBI officially gave up the search for D.B. Cooper. Officially, in 2016. This happened in 1971, when I was born. All right? So 46 years ago. This guy is now, as far as the criminal element, as far as police forces, he is legend. Where did he go? How did he survive? How has he stayed out of the public light? No one has found him. No one. Is he a master of disguise? Did he actually survive? Where's the body? He is now legend. Simply because we have guessed, we have wondered. There's no eyewitness, so he's now legend. John Henry. As a black kid growing up, John Henry was one of my heroes. They had built the steam engine so that they didn't need people to cut through. John Henry said, "No, you gotta keep humans so I can beat this steam engine." John Henry supposedly cut through a mountain with his pickaxe faster than the steam pickaxe thing could do it. And he did it so well. And I think the story goes, I'm not exactly sure. I think he died after he finished it, but he won. A thing of legend, because John Henry, was he a real man? Yes. Was he a big dude? Yes. Was he very skilled at his trade? Yes. Did he beat a steam engine through a mountain? No. It's legend, but that's what we're taught. Johnny Appleseed. Johnny Appleseed was a real dude. He was a real dude who encouraged the planting of apple groves. He walked around, he planted apple groves throughout the New England area and some of the Ohio Valley area. But did he go across America barefoot planting apple seeds? No. It was an embellishment in a newspaper article concerning the man, but it became a popular legend. Davy Crockett became a legend. Did he wrestle a bear with one hand? No. It's a legend. All these things are legend. Was he a real person? Yes. Did he fight at the Alamo? Yes. Did he, was he a good military leader? Yes. But did he do all these crazy things that he did? No. Paul Bunyan, 50 feet tall dude, got into a fight with another big dude, and they created the Great Lakes. Legend. Had a big giant blue oxen? Legend. But was Paul Bunyan a real dude? Yes, he was a real dude. We can find this in other religions. Siddhartha Gautama, who became the Buddha, who is now legend, now practically worshipped. Muhammad, practically worshipped. W. Fard Wallace, Force of Nation of Islam, legend. Joseph Smith, legend in the Latter-day Saints. We can find people who have become legend. Martin Luther, you know, with the Protestant Reformation, John Calvin, John Knox. We can name all these people. They become legend. They become legend. So let's talk about the Christianity and its legend. I'm not using just Christianity. That's why I mentioned those other, because I come out of Christianity as a kid, live in America, mostly Christian. That's just what you know. Most of my people, they're coming out of Christianity or they're already out. So that's why we use it as a base. And let me say that right here. It's used as a base of wisdom. When you say that I'm not teaching, I'm not teaching correct biblical text, I forgot the word that you actually use. That's because I don't accept it as a valid, truthful document. I don't accept it as a historical document. It is accepted as a book of wisdom that has been heavily translated and misinterpreted and changed by man. But there is still wisdom in the book. Let's look at something else that people become legend. Sainthood in Christianity. Mostly in the Catholics, but also in other variations of Christianity. Sainthood. Incredibly popular. But let's look at some of the things about sainthood. One of the most important things about sainthood is that you have to perform a miracle to become a saint. A miracle must have occurred, and usually those miracles aren't even talked about until after you die. In order to become the Pope, you had to have performed a miracle. But most of the time, the miracle is not witnessed by anyone other than yourself that you claim. In order to become the emperor of Rome and to become a god, you had to perform miracles and be considered a godhead. So any of the saints that are in Christianity, they had to have performed miracles. But yet there's no true validation of these miracles. There's hearsay. There's this person and that person. But there is no true documentation of a miracle. So therefore, where does it come from? It is something that is an embellishment. Maybe they did something and it seemed amazing and it was great. I don't know. I wasn't there. But in order to be a saint, you have to have performed a miracle. So this is legend. They become legend. Now into the actual Jesus character. In order to understand this, let me give you some basic information first. Liar, lunatic, lord, or legend. What makes a person a legend? Well, the first thing about making a person a legend is that you have to have a real person. I know some people are going to say Jesus never existed. And I would agree with you in the context of what the Bible says who Jesus is and what he did. What I will say is that Josephus ben Matthew, who was the who wrote with Titus, who went with Titus, who rewrote Judaism for the Flavians, who gave Vespasian a son of God Messiah document to help him to become a god in the Roman government, who wrote the Annals of Titus, who wrote the War of the Jews, who was a historian, one of the earliest historians of the Jewish people, that Josephus wrote about 4 different Jesuses, 4 different Yeshuas. And I'm just going to give you one right now. Now I'm going to give you maybe one, maybe 2. Well, one is the Yeshua, who came in on Palm Sunday, who argued and flipped tables at the church for the money changers, who then argued at the Pharisees and the Sadducees in the temple. But then the Pharisees and Sadducees had him seized, took him to the governor. I think the governor's name starts with a U. I can't think of the name right offhand. If I find it, I'll put it right here. And his name starts with a U. Took him to that governor. The governor questioned him, talked to him. The governor even beat him a little bit. But then the governor said that this guy's a lunatic. He's crazy. So the governor sent him back out on his way. He raised a little rabble, but then he left. That's one Yeshua character that Josephus talks about. The other Yeshua character that he talks about was the brother of James. This Yeshua was a Pharisee. He got into an argument with another Pharisee. Those Pharisees came to argue, kind of like Jesus and Nicodemus, came to argue, and then at the end they saw that the other Pharisees was scamming and was a liar and trying to usurp someone else's authority, and then that Jesus became the primary Pharisee. He was a Jesus, brother of James. Why is it that, now there is a part that is already, before anybody says anything, there's a part in Josephus' writings where it talks about the Jesus character, that if he was a man because of all the miracles. No, I'm gonna tell you why that. I'm gonna show you in a minute why that's a fake. That's been proven as fraud. But here's an indication of why that's fraud and why that would not have been written at the time frame that Josephus wrote. You see, Josephus was born in 34 AD. 34 AD. The Jesus character is from 0 to around 33 AD. So Josephus would have been born, he's not an adult at 34 AD. So he would not have ever witnessed the Yeshua character of the Bible. He was born in 34 AD. He was around 25 when he became a Galilean general. So you're talking about around 54, 55, 60 AD. When he starts his writings, it's around 60 to 65 AD, when Vespasian comes into town, right? Because as a young man, he visited Rome, right? Right before he fought Vespasian and Titus at the Sea of Galilee, where Vespasian and Titus started their mission to conquer Judea, the Sea of Galilee. Same place Jesus started his work, right? So we're talking about around 60 AD of Josephus' writings, because most of his writings were done on the road with Titus, which they didn't finish conquering Judea until 70 AD. So he started his writings around that through that time frame. It's Josephus' writings about Jesus. Josephus doesn't mention any miracles in his actual writings. He doesn't mention any virgin births in his actual writings. Now, where else could he have gotten an idea of this Yeshua character during that time frame? Well, the first writings that mention a Yeshua character is the letters of Paul. And these letters of Paul are authenticated around 50, 53, 55 AD, right? So you got this time frame of Paul's writings. Now, I know this can be a little bit confusing because I'm saying that Josephus didn't start writing until about the same time that Paul started writing. All right, so their writings are going on relatively at the same time. But like I said, they're going on at the same time while there were Yeshua characters who came and taught. Think about it. If a Yeshua character came into Jerusalem and spoke to the Pharisees and Sadducees and then was taken to a governor, Paul was a Pharisee. He would have heard about this guy named Yeshua who came in. So both Paul and Josephus would have known the same Yeshua. You with me? They would have known of the same story of this Yeshua character. So this is why they still work with one another. So Paul's teachings around 50 through about 60 through the 60s AD. Now, Paul's teachings on Yeshua are very vague. If you look at them, they're very vague. They don't get into any specifics. They don't really break down, they're mostly just about the teachings and just believing. And a lot of it is about working. A lot is about working, doing work, right? I mean, no, not Paul, sorry. It's about faith, just believing. Just believe. There's actually, when you look at the Gospels, there's actually some great differences in the theology of Paul compared to the writers of Mark, Luke, and John, especially John. And then, of course, in the Acts. Now, so that's around 50. You don't get another writing until around 70 AD. This is where you get Mark. And this is where you get your first miracles. And these miracles are basic, but you get your first miracles in Mark. And this is around 70 AD that you get Mark. But all of a sudden, now he's starting to perform miracles. See, in the writings of Paul and what Josephus wrote, no miracles. We get into Mark, there's starting to be miracles. Now, from Paul's writings and Josephus' writing, we have about a 20-year gap. Now we're in 70 AD. So now we have a 40-year gap, right? We have a 40-year gap. So by the time we get to a 40-year gap, there's less likely anybody who can challenge the writings. So the writings are not too far-fetched. The miracles are not too out of there. And as a matter of fact, the resurrection story in the original writings of Mark did not exist. He died. He was placed in a tomb. the women came, but they saw an empty tomb. And the original story, that's how it ended. The tomb was just empty. It was just empty. There was no resurrection originally in Mark. There was no ascension originally in Mark. No one seen him in Mark in the original text. So that's how it ended. Now that's interesting because in 70 AD, if he died in 33 AD, in 70 AD, this Bible to still have some teenagers, people who were teenagers in 33 AD, who were still alive in 70 AD. So you would still have people who can say, "Ooh, you liar, Mark, you're a liar. Mark, you're lying. That's not what happened. Nobody ever said that." Right? So that's 70 AD. And then around 80 AD, between 80 and 85 AD, 10 more years, 10, 15 more years later. So now we're talking not just 40 years, all right? We're talking 50 and 55 years later. Now you're starting to have more supernatural things occur. And you had 3 books. You had Matthew, you had Luke, and you had the QLM. Now, of course, the QLM is not part of the Bible, but it was used. See, like if you had a scrap, the QLM completed the scrap. Is how they wrote the Bible, wrote these Gospels. So when we get to Matthew, all of a sudden we have 3 more miracles. 3 more miracles that were never mentioned in Paul's writing. 3 more miracles that was never mentioned in Josephus' writing. 3 miracles that was never written in Mark's writing. 3 additional miracles never in Mark's writing. And then in Luke, we have 7 additional miracles. So that's 10 miracles, 10 new miracles that were never mentioned. So so between 30 to 80 AD, we're just going to use 30 to 80 AD, 50 years, 50 to 55 years, we have 10 miracles that no one talked about, that no one said a word, that no other reporter wrote it, that no one of the time said that, hey, wait, I heard what he did this. These miracles never heard of until 50 years after. The story's getting bigger. The story's getting bigger. He's getting big. Now, what else do we have in Matthew and Luke that you did not have for 55 years? Remember, the first writings, just a guy who protested, just a guy who went into the church and said some stuff, who got kicked out, a guy who went and the governor said, no, man, you got to go, you know. That you just crazy. Bring me this crazy guy. Ain't got time for this. And that guy who then, after that, 20 years later, the story starts getting, and Paul just writing some vague things about him. He came and he taught, man. He said you got to love one another and that you got to believe. And then all of a sudden here comes Mark, 30 years later, say, yeah, well, yeah, he did say you got to believe, and he got kicked out but he performed a couple of miracles, just a couple of miracles, and then here's Mark and Luke, 50 years later, saying that no, he also, man, I know he performed these miracles, but he also did this one and he did that one. He got bigger and bigger. He Paul Bunyan in it now. He getting like Paul Bunyan. He Paul Bunyan in it, right? So, so we got that going on. But then all of a sudden, Matthew and Luke says that, oh, did you know that not only that, but he was born of a virgin. She was virgin, purity. They got to make this guy as pure as possible. Before, he was born from a regular old woman. Now, he born from a virgin, right? A young girl, which just means young married girl who hasn't had a baby yet. But in Greek, it meant a woman who hadn't been touched by a man. So, a virgin. Now she's been born by a virgin. And of course, we're talking in 80, 85 AD. So, of course, it's written in Greek. That's why it's written in Greek, because they were being conquered. But he's born by a virgin now. So, the story's gotten bigger, right? So, the virgin birth. But then they say, you know what? The tomb was empty. But we know from the Jewish scholars that the Messiah must rise up into heaven and come back. Plus, they got Hercules. Hercules went into the heavens. They got what that other dude? They got Dionysus. He went up into the heavens. They got Atticus. He went up into the heavens. They got Achilles went up into the heavens. They got all these people who then went up into the heavens. So you know what? Not only was the tomb empty, but there were angels that was inside and there was outside, and there were angels, and then Mary saw him, and then he came and talked to the people. He talked to his disciples, and the disciples saw him and they talked to him. So these stories started getting bigger, and it's 55 years afterward, and the story got big because all of a sudden now he rose up. Now he's up and down. Now he went up to his Father and he's coming back. The story got bigger and bigger and bigger. It became a big fish story. He became legend. And then, of course, around 100 and 120 AD, you have the writing of John. You have the writing of John. Now, John, scholars, most scholars, whether religious scholars or not, they don't consider John a historical book. It's more, and this is one of the big differences between John and the other synoptic gospels. It's not considered historical, but more theological, right? And it's more theological, and that's where we get more of the theosophy of Jesus. And this is where we get the bread of God, the Lamb of God, the light of the world. That's not written anywhere else. That's not written in the other books. Those were only written in John originally. That's it in John. John 3:16 was the only thing that was like that. The only thing that was like John 3:16 was in John. There was nothing else in the previous gospels that was hardcore like John 3:16. The beginning of in John, when it said, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and came manifested in the flesh, that was not, there's nothing like that in the other gospels. So John became more of a theological book, not a historical book, but he became greater with John. By now, no one is alive who was ever around Jesus at that time. If you were born in 30 AD, by the time you get to John, right, in 100 to 120 AD, you're 70, 80, 90 years old, right? You're 70, 80, 90 years old. Your parents are probably passed on. There's no witnesses who can refute what's been said, right? So you can write whatever you want. You can write whatever you want. In 100 years, I can write things. Someone can write things about Michael Jackson, and there will be no one to contest it, right? But even in today's world, like I said, with the rabbi, died in 1994. He's expected to return, and just so that you guys can understand how things become legend, not only is he expected to return as the Jewish Messiah, but he is also, they have a chair, and that chair sits in the temple, and he's also thought of to be just hidden for now. And since he's thought of to be hidden, then many people go and to that temple and they celebrate with him, they dance with him, they drink with him. He has become a modern day legend because people believe that he's there present with them. So when people say that Jesus is present with me, these people say that the rabbi is present with me, that he is the Messiah and he's here with me. I know him, I feel him, I celebrate with him, I pray with him. He guides me, I pray, and he talks to me. He talks to me, is what they say. In the same way that people do that today with the Jesus character, with the Yeshua character. So as you guys can see, it is not that difficult to become legend. It is not that difficult to become legend. We do it today. We've done it today. Now when somebody does something that goes against our societal norm, we'll quickly call them lunatic. When somebody just says things like, people are going to come and some people just say to me, I'm a liar, you're a liar, hey, you're a liar, you're taking this out of biblical context. I don't take things out of biblical context because the context of the Bible is not truth, as far as I'm concerned, and many other people, and as many are joining me in understanding that it is just not truth as far as being a historical document. And understand that. I'm saying historical document. As far as a book of wisdom, as far as a basic instruction before leaving earth, it's true. I believe that many people read the Bible but misunderstand it completely. That it is basic instruction before leaving earth, but also it is a book that helps you, that can allow you to understand how this universe works and how you are the God of this universe, how you are little God inside you. If you are a reflection, if you are made in the image, then you have the ability to rework your universe, rework your world to make it fit you, make it fit how you want it to be. I did a thought manifestation last night, right? Exercise that I do quite often, but I did one last night and it happened this morning. It happened this morning, exactly the way I did the thought exercise. And it is understanding. See, when it says that in my Father's house there are many mansions, the many mansions are in your mind. The many mansions are the thing. There are many rooms. These, because it really doesn't say mansion, it means rooms. But these rooms are in your mind. They're places that you go, places you create. There's something that you have. Yesterday in a video, I talked about how if you're living in hell on earth, it's because you created it for yourself. Yes, other people may be creating hell for you, but for you to remain in it is something that you're creating, that you're adding to, that you're constantly perpetuating. If you're constantly thinking about the negativity of your life, the negativity of your day. If you go into a Friday thinking that it's amazing and great because it's Friday and you don't have to go to work, then what you're saying is that your work, your job is hell. And if you constantly go to work saying your work, your job is hell, then of course your work, your job will always be hell. Because you will find everything that's wrong with your job. You will find everything that plagues you in your job, if that's your mindset. If you believe you're in a hellistic relationship, not Hellenistic, but a hellistic relationship, you will maintain that hell in your relationship because that's all you can see. You can't see the beauty of it. You can't see the greatness of it. And you can't see how you can make it great because your mindset, the way you live your day every day, is focused on that negative aspect. And that is the true mansions in the kingdom, because the kingdom is all around you and the kingdom is inside you and outside of you. It's everywhere. The kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of hell is present in you and around you. So that means that you have the control over it just by using your brain. And I do believe that the Bible teaches that, but it's been misinterpreted and misused in order to control people. Because a God that slaves all the women and the children and all the old people and all the cattle and that sort of thing is not a good God. I'm sorry to bust your bubble. That's not a good God. And since the Jesus character said that he's been there from the beginning to the end, then he said it too. And so no, I'm sorry. I cannot accept that as historical fact. No, it's not. Plus, I just showed you how it can't be historical fact, that the teachings are legend. And as long as you start understanding that, I think you'll be better off. I know you'll be better off, and you'll find your own greatness. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video, guys. I appreciate you being here. Remember to hit bracelet in here if you want to be in the giveaway. Continue to subscribe. I know this video has been long, but I know you enjoyed it, and there's some great information. So go back and watch it about 11 more times. Share this video with other people, and then let's discuss it in the comments. Let's discuss it. Even-minded discussions. You know, I don't get into endless loops of discussion that serves no purpose, as well as don't write in all capitals, and please use paragraphs. If you want to write a book, use paragraph and don't write in all capitals. I don't read all capitals, first of all, and if it's long with no paragraphs, I'm not going to read that either. Just for those who want to argue with me for the sake of argument. But you guys, for all those who are truly my friends, I appreciate you, I love you, and as always, you got to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable.